it's unlikely that I'm going to take a young water buffalo anywhere. He goes, well, this is the other thing you can do to tempt them. I will sell you illegally shotgun shells. And when you get into the highlands, one shotgun shell equals 24 hours of labor. So you can hire your guides. Money will be of no use there, but you can pay them in shotgun shells. And so that's how I got the trip started. But it took like 2.5 months. For the next 5 months, I was so deep in the rainforest. There are no accurate maps for that area. And I was completely at their mercy. And we would go from one nomadic camp to the next. I would stay there maybe for a week or 2. And then maybe a couple of guys would volunteer and go, okay, we'll take you to that next river valley. And that's sort of how the trip unfolded. But when I did the trip, I had no intention of ever writing a book. But I did keep journals, and I thought this is just to remain sane, because everything about their world seemed strange to me. And everything that they asked me about the world that I came from, they thought I was making up stories. And I learned a really rudimentary form of Bahasa. It's called Bahasa Pasar. It's the simplest form of Bahasa. And it was their second language, so that's how we communicated the whole time. So as the trip went on, people would ask me questions like, we sit around the campfire, and an airplane flew overhead just at dusk, and 2 of my guides said, we see those, what are they? I go, well, that's an airplane. What is an airplane? And I go, well, if you can imagine a long house, 200-300 feet long, with wings, and there are probably a few hundred people sitting in it. And the looks on their faces like, no, he's making this up. Most of the guides had never seen tinned food. They didn't know what the ocean was. And I tried to explain the ocean to them. I said, okay, all these streams and all these rivers, they go down to this big lake that's very salty. They go, well, how big is this lake? And I go, well, I live on the other side of it. They said, well, how far would that be? So I told them in miles. They said, well, how did you get here then? I said, well, I came in a dugout canoe. And immediately they said, that's a lie. And I go, why is that? I said, you couldn't put enough rice in a canoe to get 5,000 miles across this big lake that you're trying to tell us about. So a lot of Stranger in the Forest is cross-cultural stories. At one point, one of them had a radio. And there was a report on the east coast of Kalimantan. A missionary's house had been broken into, and I think they were boogies who had come in, and they were trying to abduct a young girl that lived with the missionary. It ended up that the missionary pulled a spear off his wall that he had as a souvenir, and he stabbed one of them. They ran off. So the Puna and I, we started talking about crimes in our societies. So they said, well, what's a big crime where I come from? And I go, well, murder, rape, burglaries, and just named everything I could think of. And so they talked and they said, you know, that's not actually part of our culture. We've heard of these things, but why would anybody do that in their society? And they live in groups of 25 to 30. They loan everything back and forth. And so I said, what is a serious crime in your culture? And they talked for about 5 minutes, and finally one guy stood up and he said, you know, the worst thing that we can do to the people we live with is to be selfish. And I looked at him and I said, you know, where I come from, you're rewarded for being selfish. The more you can hoard and take for yourself and keep from others, the more prestige you have, the more things you have. And in this sort of daily conversation with them, I started thinking, okay, I'm suffering under the impression that I came from a civilized society. And the more they tell me about how they live in the world, I'm thinking, no, I'm the savage. I come from a primitive society.